Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Partnerships for Profit. I'm your host, Ana Del Rio, and this week we're joined by Bernhard, aka Bernie Kerschbaum, a Vistage chair and success catalyst for leaders and businesses. Bernie helps executives grow through peer advisory, accountability, and perspective-shifting conversations that drive transformation in businesses and life. Tune in as we explore how true leadership starts with self-mastery and community. Thank you so much for being on the show, Bernie.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So do me a favor and do our audience a favor and tell us about yourself, where you come from, and what you do.
Yeah, I'm, like you just mentioned, I'm a Vistage chair. I live in Battle Creek, Michigan, but as you can tell from my accent, not quite from around here. So I grew up in Europe, Austria, Germany, lived in a bunch of other places in the Middle East, in the UK, and then now I've been in the Midwest for about 25 years and really call that my home now. But obviously my background and my upbringing has shaped me what I am right now. And that's sort of what drives where I'm going.
Excellent. And I would love to get into all of the information about where you're originating from and all of that, but we got to take this in a different direction. So tell me about, your business and the fact that you're a Vistage chair. What is that?
Yeah, so we work with leaders at usually at the ownership level, CE level, for companies somewhere in the range 5 million to about 250 million, who are basically realizing that they are right. It's lonely at the top, so they understand that there's other people out there that might have some knowledge and can help each other get better at what we do, and really work together and help each other become better leaders and help our communities and our companies thrive and get better at what we do.
Perfect. So you've led across cultures and continents. What did being the new kid so many times teach you about leadership and belonging?
Yeah, I think again, when we go back to the playgrounds, we are a lot of times the new kid on the block. We walk into a playground and kids are curious. They like to explore. They play together. They explore who does what, and ultimately they come together and work together and build relationships. And I think over time, we start losing that curiosity and that exploration and sort of build ourselves up into put on filters, put on different lenses and put things into categories, right? Good versus bad, or for or against, or left versus right. And I think obviously growing up in Europe and then coming to the US, so even like watching American TV shows, right? It's always the good guy against the bad guy. It's always like this black and white. There's very little gray. And so I think creating labels that divide us, and I think in today's society you see that even more, right? Every time you turn on the TV and watch a newscast, sometimes I play the game and watch like 5 different news channels, and you wonder, like, are we even in the same country, in the same time zone, in the same date? Because the perspectives are so different from the different vantage points, and I think that's the big thing. I think that we've started losing that as we grow older and get into our roles as leaders and that part of it. So for me, it's really like, what happens if we get rid of those labels and those divisions and come back to this part of being on the playground and being curious and really looking at people for who they are. And I think that's really what drives me and my work with leaders across companies in the Midwest and across the world as well.
So like love and business is rarely appearing in the same sentence. Let's be honest. So why do you believe love is a foundation of effective leadership?
So love, I think, requires an open heart, and it's more than it's more than the open mind, right? The mind is up here, and when we go down into our heart and even into our gut, right, and really do what's right, I think that like makes us show up as a different leader. And I think I truly believe in the good in people and assume positive intent. If I haven't met anybody, like this is what the kids on the playground do. They don't put a label on that kid and hey, where are you from? Where do you come from? Right? What can you do? That type of thing, and really look at that curiosity and look beyond that first impression and the facade and the mask that we develop over time. And a lot of times, right, it's impression management, that we are trying to impress whoever shows up in a networking event or wherever it is. And I think, to me, that really is where I think the love and the open heart comes from, and be able to go deeper, explore really what's behind that viewpoint. And one thing that was really I think transformational for me was in the book Fierce Conversation by Susan Scott. She describes this beach ball, right? And if you take a beach ball and hold the beach ball up close to your head, what you only see one stripe and one color of that beach ball. So if I'm looking at the red stripe, the world looks red to me, right? Everything looks red. And the other person standing on the opposite side or slightly to the side might see the yellow stripe or the blue or the green stripe, right? And for them, the world is green or blue or yellow. And so what's really the truth? It really is the vantage point that we are on. And if we start moving that beach ball a little bit further away and maybe like twist it around and step away from it, now all of a sudden we can see that there's something else. And yeah, all of our background, all of our upbringing is something that shapes that our vantage point, and it's probably really hard to completely see the opposite. But if I make an attempt to look at the world from a different viewpoint and from different vantage points, I think that makes a huge difference. And I think that's really what I'm looking for in leaders and people I want to work with is going into this, them having the ability to look at the world from different points and look at the people they work with from different vantage points. So that's really a big thing for me. That's, I think, where the love comes in as the foundation for that, to assume the positive intent and eliminate the labels and the divisions and right. It's very easy to go from labels to hate, right? I mean, you look at politics, you look at, again, history in the world. So especially coming from Europe, right? I mean, you look at the Second World War, right? I mean, how did it start? It all started with labels, and then now we can easily turn on the hate to put a population into a certain category and do the horrific things that happened.
Right. My goodness. I imagine that it requires a lot of retraining because, as you said, on the playground, we were never thinking of those labels. It didn't matter, what you wore, what you look like, or anything like that. So, I mean, do you find that difficult in trying to get the people that you work with to change that mindset?
I think there's people out there probably that have a certain mindset, right? That no matter what you do, probably they won't change, right? I mean, and this is I think normal with anybody, right? Your upbringing, your background, all of this stuff really shapes you, and depending what you went through as a kid, and especially in in the formative years, I think it drives you who you are as a person.
Absolutely.
But understanding what those things are and being able to go into that history and really dive into why I'm showing up this way, right? Why I'm so angry, why I'm so upset by certain things. I mean, that takes some reflection and some work. I think some deep personal work that some people, I think, need to do a lot more work than others to get to that point. But I think if you just reflect back on what we did as kids and go back to that assumption of positive intent and really go into a new relationship or into somebody that we haven't met with an open heart, right? And try to find out what's going on, right? Tell me what's happening on your side of the world. And if I'm open to hearing the explanation, I think, right, I think that openness to really listening and hearing what's going on in other people's worlds. I think that's the key aspect of I think and the foundation for that. And some people are more open to that than others. And obviously we only have a certain amount of time to work with people and make an impact in this world. And if somebody is completely not open to that, I'm probably not the right person to work with them, right?
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, what would you consider the biggest misconceptions leaders are having about like creating caring and connecting cultures within their business?
I think one size does not fit all, right? It's and I think this goes back to what we started out with here with right the labeling and the black and white. I mean, right? You look at the conflicts in this world, and you go back to colonialism. You can go back to the American way of foreign policy in certain areas, right? It doesn't work. Democracy doesn't work in every part of the world. Colonialism didn't work in all parts of the world, right? We've had tribal societies that have survived for centuries and millennia, and now all of a sudden we want to put something in on top of that. Right. And I think that same concept is something that I've always lived that way. When I was looking at, I've been involved in a couple of companies where I was in charge of basically taking technology and adapting it to a much smaller plant here in the US from a European headquarter. And in all those instances, I had to look and see what worked over there in terms of that environment that typically was about 10 times the size in terms of volume. And now bringing it to a much smaller plant in the US, right? Different raw materials, different requirements in terms of output volume, different specialization, that type of thing. So we really had to adapt that. And I think that approach is the same way, right? The same solution that works in Michigan doesn't work in Florida, right? And we talked about that before you came online, right?
Right.
Yeah. Michigan has a different purpose than the one in Florida. And it's probably not thicker, but it's still a puffer jacket, right? And
Right.
different weight than what I need for when it's -20 versus 60 degrees in Florida. So I think those are the things for me that I think adapting to whatever the local needs are. And I think this is something that's important to bring the local people and the people who have the expertise. And this is right. It could be a leader of a company that is moving to a different country and tries to set something up, listening to the people that are there that know what's going on, and not saying this is the way we're going to do it and that's the only way it's going to work. And I think again, being open to different input, different approaches, and listening to that and being able to say, you know, I don't know, right? I don't know what's going to work. Help me figure this out and yeah, make that work. I think those are the type of things that I'm really strong about and really pushing again my members as well and the people I work with to work with on those type of approaches.
I love that. So do me a favor, like share a moment when can you share a moment where choosing compassion over like competition completely changed an outcome?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of times it's the right. I'm better than you. That competitive approach, seeing somebody struggle, or and then taking advantage of their weakness because I can get a step ahead of them, right? Whether it's in a company, pitting two departments against each other. I think to me that's really, I think, not a long-term path to success. And really trying to understand what's going on with a team or with a department or with another person in across the aisle or in a different department, and really finding out why would a reasonable, rational person not do what I asked them to do if I'm the supervisor, and that employee might not be doing what I'm going to ask them to do, right? Are they missing a skill set? What happened outside of their work life, right? I mean, if their dog died and their car broke down on the way to work, they're not showing up as their best self that day, right? And they might be upset with the customer if they're in customer service. So if that's the if I don't want to see that, or I'm not really looking and understanding what's going on in that person's life, I think that's the type of thing where I might be making an assumption and say, you know what, yeah, go home, right, come back when you figure this out, type of thing.
Right.
And working together with peers and learning from them and asking for help and being vulnerable and open and saying, hey, I don't know, right? That I think is a big part of I think where we can really build much deeper relationships with the people we work with. And if we do that, I think the energy that we create and the energy that we're not using to form those labels and form those divisions now becomes available to do a lot more and make a much bigger impact. And it starts out in a small group, right? It starts out in a small team or a small group of friends, and if that now propagates throughout the rest of the organization, what can that organization then do in the bigger community? And if that community really thrives, what can that community then do at the state or at the regional or at a country level? And I think that to me is sort of like really where the ripples start out at the small portion, right? At the small part of the world or small team. And to me, all of those things are communities, right? It's the community at a team level, it's the community at a department level, it's the community at a company level, and then ultimately the community that we live in and the countries that we live in and the world. And if we bring our small communities together to help each other and work with each other, I think that just makes a huge difference in the world. And again, we eliminate the competition, right? We're not pitting customers against customers or suppliers against suppliers or one against the other. Because if you all work together on that, I think we can achieve much more things. And again, it's a much more fun place to be.
No, I agree. I mean, doing the opposite essentially is, there's a word and I cannot think of what it is, but it's like going in the reverse. Like what is the word that I'm thinking of? It's a detriment to, their production, what they're trying to achieve. That's not the word, but that will work.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what happens inside the organization when leaders truly love to uplift?
I think it just creates a totally different area, a different atmosphere within there, right? It's a much more joyful part, people helping each other. And I think that uplift goes much further than just the organization, right? When people are uplifted, now they go home and had a joyful day at work, and they take that joy and go home. They're not drained, they're not wiped out, and now, right, they go home to their family, they go home to their spouse, they go home to their kids, they go home to their friends, and it just propagates further than that. And I think that energy is something that will spread. That positive energy will spread, and I think it has an impact on people's not just prosperity, but mental health, physical health, all of that, right? If you're drained all day long in the 8 or 10 or 12 hours that we work, and now I have no energy left to do anything else, that negatively impacts everybody around us. And if we can take that positive energy and now give back to the community or give back to other places, or use our time to mentor other organizations and kids or adults or whatever it might be, whether it's Boy Scouts or robotics or the church,
Right.
or anything else that we want to give back to, I think it just creates this proliferation of positive energy, and the uplift, not just in that small unit that we're in, but the community across the board.
Absolutely. Did you notice a huge difference in the culture when it pertains to like the work-life culture here in the States versus in the EU?
Yes, I think initially, I think when I first sort of arrived in the US, right, you could definitely see a lot more of the sort of, how do I call it?
live to work, not work to
Yeah,
live.
dog
Something,
doggy
what is
dog
it?
type of thing, right? A lot
Yeah,
more
yeah.
competitive nature and
Mhm.
me against that. But I think ultimately, I think it really depends when you start looking at different organizations, right? The ones that are uh, the ones that give back to the community to do that. I think that is becomes more it becomes more obvious that I think those organizations, it doesn't matter where they're in the world, really have the same kind of values and the same kind of approach to that, right?
Mhm.
They let that, it's not a top down hierarchical decision making, and everything needs to float up to the top for the decision to be made to come back down.
Mhm.
The decisions are made at that level, at the appropriate level in the organization, with the authority that they can do that. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, if you build that trusting relationship with the people you work with, and everybody in the organization does that, you can now drive down the decision making to that lowest level, because you trust that the people are making
Totally.
the right decisions in those organizations, that are the right decisions for the company. And I think when people have a clear understanding of what the vision is of the organization and where we want to go and what the rules of engagements are, I've always told people that worked for me, you're never making the wrong decision if you base your decision that are aligned with the values of the company and within your decision making authority, right? If I'm
Mhm.
uh, a department manager, right, I'm not going to go and change banks, right, because that's a decision
Right.
that's not in my line of authority. But if I make the decision at that level, then I've not made a wrong decision. If my boss disagrees with that, and this is I think a really important part as well, is let's look at this decision. Was this the optimum decision, or could that
Mhm.
decision have been even made better? Because at the end of the day, if I only make a decision with a certain amount of information, and my boss obviously has more information than I do, yeah, of course he would make a slightly different decision. It's not going to be 180 degrees opposite from what I was doing. But at the end
Mhm.
of the day, right, if I'm working within the right framework and I have a clear vision of where we're going, I can make the decisions that will take us a step further into that direction. And if somebody disagrees, then again, how do you handle that, right? Like,
Right.
do you bark at them and say this was the wrong decision? Or, you know what, next time maybe consider this or this data point. Or if you don't think you have the data points, come back to me. Let's talk about the decision, and then go back into that, and then go and take the action after that. Right?
I love the idea of empowering employees to share in that vision and make that decision based off of that. And I imagine that it leads to a sense of loyalty or even retention, like if as an employee, if you're happy and you feel valued and you feel like you have a voice, it all adds up. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. Right. I mean, this is, I
Mhm.
think, yeah, retention, I think, is ultimately the outcome of that, or better retention.
Mhm.
And I think it also, right, it's a much higher value put on that person, right? They feel valued, they feel appreciated, they feel pride in what they do, right? And that's the
Mhm.
part where they go back home and say, you know what, hey, I had a really great day. I was able to move the needle today. And if you look at organizations that are very owner or leader centric, and everything has to go up, that
Mhm.
leader usually is not somebody who has enough love to uplift, right? Because
Right.
everything has to go to the top, and that becomes the bottleneck. And those organizations typically aren't growing as fast and as smoothly as others. And I think you see that in those leaders as well, right? They're not showing up as their best selves. Then, right? Is it stress? Is it
Mhm.
right, physical health that's suffering, because they feel like, hey, nothing's going to happen without me if I'm not there. And if you
Right.
can really delegate stuff down to the lowest levels possible, and
Mhm.
everybody in the organization can do that, now you've got an organization that really runs smooth, and you as the owner or the senior leader of that now can really focus on what's our next step, how do we get this organization to the next level, what else can we do, right? for the betterment of the people and the communities that we're in, and take that to a level that wouldn't be possible if everything has to run through you as the leader.
Absolutely. Well, Bernie, you gave so much information, and I feel like it's a movement that you're doing, because there's so many companies out there that need to utilize your services to their benefit. Because I know of quite a few that are to the detriment, unfortunately. However, tell everyone how they can find you and get your help.
Yeah, so again, reach out on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. Again, this Love to Uplift movement is just getting off the ground, so I will add some little bit more information onto my LinkedIn profile on that one as well. But yeah, that's something, again, I've sort of discovered that over the last 12 months, going through a pretty deep dive into my greater purpose, and that's really helped me really see what's out there, right? That back to the playground analogy, right? Realizing that that's where really it's coming from, and that's where I learned to be curious and be open to other people. I think that's the part, and like I said, I'm working with leaders in my Vistage peer groups, and then I'm also going to be looking at taking this to the next level for companies that are not necessarily in Michigan or in Southeast Michigan where I work. But taking it to the next level across the globe. So that's coming here in the next few months and years.
You guys have heard it, the Uplift movement. Here we go. Thank you so much, Bernie, for being on the show. We really appreciate all the information that you're able to share with us, and I hope you enjoyed. Everybody watching, have a great day.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.